enjoy the journey.
Just a new adventure. You think I should be more open-minded?
Come on, Bert. Be someone.
Wow.
What do you say when you receive a new present?
I'm gonna be sick.
You're gonna be all right.
Sorry? You dated David Bowie?
It's a sacrifice to save the world.
Hi Duncan, very happy to have you here. You are making history because you are our first live streaming from This is England Short Film Festival. So we are very happy to welcome you for the film Desire Lines. So you are the director of the film. Can you first tell us about yourself and tell us about Desire Lines?
Thanks for having me. My name, it's Duncan. I made the film Desire Lines, which is it's a documentary that looks at sort of paths. So say if you've got official paths that are like that, and you've got people take shortcuts across the grass and it makes a line in the ground, those shortcuts are called desire lines. So I basically film those from high up angles in Edinburgh where I live, and watch people taking shortcuts and talk about whether if people are always going to take the path of least resistance in life, what does that mean for sort of society at large and the human race, and are we going to always be doomed to kind of not fix problems and just sort of take shortcuts? So yeah, that's the sort of rough premise of it, and
it's very interesting to watch your film because it's in Arthur Seat, if I can spot the place, and beautiful place in Edinburgh. But you are more focused on the people just walking. So the distance you have between the camera and the people you film is interesting, because it's very distant all the time, and as if you were not part of it. You were only observing it. So don't you feel part of humankind?
I do feel part of humankind in general, but I think for this I really wanted to observe from a distance. I kind of wanted to deliberately make the people very small in the frame, and because when you're looking at what's in front of you, you don't always necessarily think that the actions you're taking are affecting things. Like, you don't realize the imprints that we're going to make in the sofa and things. You kind of don't think about it, but when you see things from further away, you see them with more of you see the bigger picture, do you know? So when you see people taking shortcuts or walking across grass, you see the imprints beginning to get made in a way that you might not even see when you're actually on the ground level. So yeah, it was a deliberate thing. I wanted that distance.
And the tone of your voice when you do the voice-over commentary is very interesting too, because there is distance too in the way you're speaking. So that's of course intentional too. So how did you imagine the film? Did you start thinking about it while you were having a walk off a seat, or did you start thinking about it where you were sitting at your desk thinking about a new film? How did you start?
So I walk in Holyrood Park like 2 or 3 times a week. It's about 10 minutes from where I live, so I can also see it from my flat. So it's kind of always in my world. So the idea just came from walking around there, and then I guess seeing like the angles in the film are kind of the angles that I see when I'm on walks. And I didn't really think about the paths until I saw an article that gave them this name of desire lines, and I sort of was like, oh, these are things that we see every day, but you don't realize they've got a name.
Yeah.
And then really just focusing on them, thinking about like sort of digging into it and doing as much as possible with it. And the voice is sort of meant to be, like I've used this technique before where the voiceover is kind of like as if you're in my head and it's really my perspective, and it's almost like an inner dialogue that I'm having with myself, but also with an audience. So it's speaking directly to them, and it's a kind of meditation type feel, like you're really in, and it's not rehearsed. It doesn't have like a script as such. I kind of just look at the footage and talk into the microphone, and then I edit it down obviously and do different takes, but it's very much like it's meant to feel very like natural and off the cuff. Yeah.
But there are interruptions in your speech when you've got someone who's being attacked by pigeons or ravens or birds.
Yeah.
There are birds,
Yeah.
and then someone talking behind you. So so of course it's while you were editing that you decided to insert those shots there. So what was the idea there?
I think I just felt like we quite often get easily distracted in life, and so I thought it would be interesting to have these distractions almost like I'm getting distracted as I'm making the film. And so because that happens as well when you're filming things. I'm like, oh, that's quite interesting, and then I'm like, oh no, I was meant to be filming that. And so it kind of is just taking that and putting it on screen, and it hopefully breaks it up in a sort of like with a bit of humor as well. I feel like whenever you say something's funny, it's immediately not funny, but it's meant to make audiences kind of laugh a bit and not be too serious as well, because it sort of is looking at quite a serious topic in terms of the climate and the world.
It starts nicely, because you feel that okay, these desire lines, I learned the term too by watching your film. At first you feel quite some kind of sympathy for the people doing it, because as you say in your film, you do the same, and we all do the same. But then in the end, you end up thinking about the fact that we do that every day, even for important things like recycling. And so maybe human beings are just lazy bastards. They will take the shortest way instead of trying to put some effort to do something. And so it becomes less a positive aspect of humankind. And I like this drifting.
It maybe gets a bit more depressive towards the end, because I felt like the film had to have a point as well. And at the time I was making it was this huge heat wave last summer, which I guess it was all over Europe as well. But in Scotland, I mean, it was like the record-breaking temperatures were happening, and so it was very much on everyone's mind, and it was very hot. And there's a frustration because you don't feel like you can do anything, and also seeing the way people react, and that they sort of just find ways around it, or they buy air conditioning, and it's not like none of us can feel like we can actually solve the bigger picture, and so there's a frustration with it. And I just wanted to do something with that frustration, that kind of those feelings of uselessness, just put it into like a film and get it out there. So I felt like I was at least doing something productive with all that annoyance. And
well, the new and beautiful path being built from Hollywood House,
it's still there.
Is the answer to this, maybe?
The Queen's Path, it's still or the King's Path now. It's still there. It's doing well. It's being well used. So
it's impressive. Is it made of plastic or no? It looks like black plastic.
I've not taken a closer look, but it's definitely one of the more elaborate paths in the area.
It's amazing.
They're actually redoing the paths all over Holyrood Park at the moment, so there could be a good follow-up film that shows all the updates. But
so what's interesting too in your film is when you film someone walking the dog, and you realize that in fact it's the dog who's leading the master. And so even this, the desire lines are chosen by the pets and not the master, and so even that the human being is not able to make a choice. No?
Yeah, they're just doing what the dogs want to do.
Yeah.
I mean, animals in like the countryside, I do a lot of walking in the mountains and stuff, and a lot of the paths there were originally formed by like sheep and like animal trails, and then humans follow them because they're already kind of made, and then they get made into. So it's almost like how paths start as well, and then how they then get built up and fortified and turned into these like more elaborate paths, and then concrete gets put over, and it sort of gets bigger and bigger. But they originally were just woven by sheep or bumbling along. So it's, It also makes, I think, when you look at humans from a further away point of view, it also makes what we're doing seem very like sort of silly as well. Like it makes us look a bit daft.
Well, that's the point of distance. I mean, when they say that sense of humor is to have the distance to criticize things and to think about it. So it makes us think a lot. So I think people will love watching your film. I'm sure about that.
Thanks.
More in a wider picture about your work in general, I read that you were commissioned quite a lot for very prestigious firms, the BBC, BBC Scotland, BBC Radio 4, TED, Channel 4. Do you work exactly the same when you work for those people? I mean, do you keep this carefree and easygoing style, or because this is clearly your style? I mean, we've had several of your films before at the festival, and there is a real touch. Can you do the same with those commissions?
Some of them. It depends if they let me. Some of those commissions, they commissioned me in a way that they wanted that style. Like they'd seen something and they wanted me to do, like the Channel 4 short film was my voiceover and filming, and the TED film was my voiceover. It's the Radio 4 was me telling a story. So it's very much, people latched on to sort of my delivery of things felt very different or like unique, and so people enjoyed that. There's other commissions that I've done where there's been less freedom, and so I've had to focus it more into doing like more of a conventional documentary. And I can make documentaries that are more like what you'd be used to seeing if I need to be, paid, and like I need to make money and things. So, but then that balances with sometimes you get asked to, I kind of try and do things in my own style as much as possible. But I'm not shy if I need to make money and film something for someone else. Like I can also not be in the film.
It's a good experience too. To try to find, to try different ways. So it's about your creative process. So do you feel that it is changing years after years? Or do you feel that you are now like those guys with these desire lines? Are you, creating your own path and following it, and you clearly see where you're heading? Or what can you tell me about this? Are you still?
I want my work to kind of evolve with each film, and some of the films are in the same style, perhaps with like filming and voiceover. Some of the shorts, particularly, are in that style because I find it a very satisfying way to communicate and directly do something. Also on a budget, like I can just go out with my camera, film it, edit it myself, and speak and get something made quite quickly without needing all the infrastructure and the money. So it's quite a satisfying thing as a creative to be able to do that and communicate like that. But I don't want every film I make to be like that, So this film doesn't necessarily have any. It has people in it, but not people I'm connecting with, right? But I also really strongly want to make work that I'm filming with contributors and connecting with people and making films about their lives and things like that. So it's not like everything I do is going to be me just pointing and talking. It's sort of a style I use sometimes, but I think if you look at the last 10 years of my short films, they sort of evolve every time, do you know?
And besides, you're quite involved in teaching, filmmaking, and also teaching what we call image education. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think like I benefited a lot from being taught filmmaking and teaching and being mentored by, I still get mentored by filmmakers that I admire. And so I now do that for early stage filmmakers, just because I think if you can do it, there should almost be an obligation to help the next people make their first short films. So I mentor first time filmmakers and do workshops with them, development workshops, and help them kind of find the style that's right for them and how they're going to make a film. And obviously not trying to make them make films in my style, but make them in their own style. What are they interested in, and like what are they feeling inside, and how does that motivation get sort of brought into their film, and you know, why are they the person making the film? I kind of love doing all that stuff, and also teaching lectures as well, and workshops with people.
You're a pretty busy man.
Well, yeah, I'm good at making myself sound busy. I mean, some days I'm just sitting about, but yeah. And that's not what I put in the bio and the website. But,
okay, so as we said before, I mean, your film Desire Lines is pretty pessimistic about human nature, but as we already talked about that, does creating things, doing art, does it make you happy?
I think like filmmaking and my filmmaking is a way of experiencing and living through the world. Like I think without it, I would struggle to feel like I had as much purpose or had a method of sort of dealing and processing things. Like one of the other films I've made recently about my granny dying, the film I made there was really a way to sort of like deal with the grief afterwards and process it for myself and also for an audience. But then it was like a therapeutic thing. Like all of my filmmaking is therapeutic. Even filming a job that's maybe something I'm less attached to, there's a therapy in doing something, because when you're filming with people and capturing memories, it's like a protest against like the passing of time. You're holding on to things, and filming with family members is a way to kind of preserve like them, you know, and
memory of
hold on to them. And
so
it's all a way of like living, really, for me. Yeah, that sounds very important and grand, but it's just
you mentioned the film about your grandmother's death. There was one before about your grandfather's death too. That was very impressive with these insects in the garden. And so it's very personal things that you put forward in those films, but it's universal at the same time, because I remember pretty well watching this film and everybody was really moved in the room, and no one knew about your grandfather before. No, but the fact is, no image of the moth getting taken away by a spider, the ant, and the passing of time and the passing of, that was very, very clever and beautifully made.
Thanks.
So really.
Yeah.
All right.
It's thanks very much.
Yeah, well, the fact is, I'm just putting my glasses on, otherwise I can't see what I wanted to ask you about in the end. That's about it. Yeah. Thank you very much.
That's all right.
That was quite interesting, and we're going to have a beer this evening to talk about it a bit longer.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Thanks very much. Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome.
People are welcome to see any of the films on. Most of them are on my Vimeo or my website.
Oh yeah,
The newest ones aren't yet, but will be. Or I guess I post about things on Instagram. Is probably the best place to follow me. Or
do it. Just do it, because it's a very good experience.
Yeah,
really.
It's just my name, Duncan Cowles. There's only one of me in existence, so it's really easy to find me.
I think your name was written somewhere on the screen.
It's on the screen. All right. That's right. I just Google that.
Okay. Okay. Cheers.
Thanks very much. Cheers. Thanks. Shall I walk off?
Enjoy the journey.
Just a new adventure. You think I should be more open-minded?
Come on, Brett. Be someone.
Wow.
What do you say when you receive a new present?
I'm gonna be sick.
You're gonna be alright.
Sorry? You dated David Bowie.
It's a sacrifice to save the world.
Enjoy the journey.
Just a new adventure.
You think I should be more open-minded?
Come on, Brett. Be someone.
Wow.
What do you say when you receive a new present?
I'm gonna be sick.
You're gonna be alright.
Sorry? You dated David Bowie.
It's a sacrifice to save the world.
Hi Barnaby, welcome to This is England Short Film Festival. We're very happy to have you here. You're here for your film Pylon. You are the director of the film. Can you, to start with, tell us about this film, about the story of it?
Sure. I'm the writer and director of the film. And it's a film about a gang of youths, young boys, who force a younger boy to climb an electricity pylon. In America, I think they call them transmission towers, but in the UK, certainly, we call them pylons. So, these things in the when you go into the countryside in the UK, the skyline is always scattered with these things carrying, very high voltage power lines, and certainly. Growing up as a child in the country, you're always warned, don't go near these things. And my mother, when I was young, gave me sort of two very key pieces of advice: don't sniff glue and don't climb pylons. And it was always kind of they seemed two very specific pieces of advice. I think she'd been reading, too many tabloids at the time, and I don't know what stories she'd been reading, but I was always fascinated about them, and that's part of where the story was born.
That's precisely what I would like to ask you about. What triggered this memory? Because I mean, in France too, we used to. I mean, I was raised in the country, and we had those things, and of course we would just try to do silly things with them. But why did you decide to use that symbol here in the middle of the country there, these electric things, for this drama? Because it's a real drama.
Yeah. Well, it was the story kind of came as an amalgamation of some childhood memories of, particularly in the summers, in the summer holidays, when children are sort of left to roam free and can kind of become feral. And I certainly remember when we would take trips to my cousins and to my uncle and auntie's house as a child, these long, sweltering summer days where we would go out into the fields and play with the children who, we didn't know them, and quite often it would create a combination of the heat, the fact that we didn't know these other children, the way children are when they come together and they are sort of like a pack of wild dogs or something. And quite often there would be fights would break out, or interesting little dynamics would be created, and there were kind of memories that were very clear in my mind, that kind of helped.
Kind of Lord of the Flies syndrome.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I thought about it when I watched your film. I said, "Oh." So I was quite impressed by the single shots, and especially one you have in your film, because I wondered how you managed to do it, following the little girl running. I guess there must be a road alongside the field in which she was running. But then after that, she gets into the house, and you get in the house with her, getting through all the people in the party in the house, and then she gets back, running back, following the mother. So can you tell me about the technique used, and why you imagine doing very long single shots like this to tell this story?
Yeah, well, I mean, the simple answer is the film was originally conceived as a single shot film. My cinematographer sent me a link on the internet a long time ago to a competition. They wanted ideas for single shot films, and if you won, you would get all the kit, all the camera hire for free.
All right.
So he said, "Have you got any thoughts for this?" And I had this idea sort of in a bottom drawer on a piece of paper or something, but hadn't done anything with it. So it was written as a single shot. But I think whoever was running the competition probably read the script and thought, this sounds expensive. And when my producers looked at the script, they said, this looks expensive as well. So I tried a few different versions of the script, and kind of, I think ultimately to the benefit of the film, decided to abandon the idea of a single shot film. Also at the time, 1917 had just come out, and I kind of thought, oh, well, it's going to feel like that. I've just tried to copy that. So we imagined it in a slightly different way, but still with these long sequence shots. I'm very interested in what I'd call ordeal cinema. So to place someone in a very difficult situation and kind of watch them kind of climb out of that. So as much as possible, I wanted to just retain the feeling of the viewer being sort of dragged along by the action, and that happens in the opening sequence of the brother and the sister walking through the field as they're being shot at with the air gun, and then of course, as you mentioned, when the girl runs to find help, that's a very long sequence as well, and required a lot of kind of technical rehearsal. Extras are involved. Please don't look at the camera. Please stand there. So that was a dance, really, a very choreographed thing to do. And in terms of the way that we executed it, we we used tracking vehicles, or two tracking vehicles to do that. In the field, we didn't really have a location scout. The house in the film is my uncle's house.
All right.
The field is a field that I was going on Google Earth, and I was going on Wikimedia Commons, which is a part of Wikipedia where people can kind of submit their own pictures, and I was going down lots of rabbit holes finding fields with pylons, and found this field. Spoke to a dog walker. She said, "Oh, this is the owner of the field." I called him, and fortunately he was very accommodating. But the field had a track that sort of went down to the pylon, so it provided a kind of perfect opportunity for us to capture the shot of her running through, although it was still very bumpy.
Yeah, but it must have been a steady camera, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
It looks pretty smooth. And the little girl runs very fast. I mean, she's very impressive.
Yeah, and it was her first acting job, so, you know.
That's why I thought when you told me that you wanted to do a single shot film. I mean, the performance of the actors is really great in your film, but I mean, it would have been very difficult to have them be exactly on time and always. I mean, that's why it makes it so expensive to do a single shot film. Is it because it takes longer time to shoot, or you got?
Well, I think just in terms of finding, you know, obviously the two locations in the film, the housing estate and the field, were miles apart from each other. So to find the ideal playground for that would have been difficult. Originally, when we were conceiving the idea, we needed to figure out how to use the pylon, and we were looking at kind of figures and quotes for constructing a perfect replica of a whole pylon. This was getting crazy. So we did build a corner of a pylon, which is the exact replica of the one that's kind of, you know, the big thing.
Okay, to secure the climbing images.
But you know, the children, particularly the little girl in these shots that you're talking about, I mean, even though it was her first job, she would have been fine if it was a single shot thing, because she just threw her entire being into the film, and you know, she had to do a lot of running in that film, and you know, lots of takes, running on kind of not very stable ground, and no questions asked, just every single time. You know.
And I really liked and the city boys. I mean, the big booties.
Yeah.
So of course the elder brother is very good in his acting, but the other guys who are really, I mean, stupid guys. They acted very well as stupid guys. So.
Yeah.
Was it really acting, or?
No, they were a mixture of, some were from like a theatre group, but they were all local boys. And, and I was, you know, I live in London and work primarily in London. We cast the two brothers in London, and everybody else was from Dorset, which is where we shot. And that was important to me because I wanted to tell them what I would call a sort of middle class, everyday kind of quotidian story. Rather than like an inner city, you know, I think we've seen enough stories about, and also just the message that I think it sends about, you know, inner city children like causing trouble. It's not the story I wanted to tell. These stories happen all over the country in very everyday places, and the boys in the gang, I like to think of them as like, if you were to meet those boys individually, they'd probably be quite nice sort of everyday boys, but when they are left to their own devices, when they come together in a group, suddenly this thing takes over them, and suddenly they become, they lose sort of, they take leave of their senses. And so in terms of casting those boys, finding the right look for them, I didn't want them to feel like, you know, boys off a Londoner council estate. I wanted them to feel like they're from an everyday, regular housing estate in a sort of suburban or bordering on kind of rural town, and in a way that should strike a bit more fear in the audience, because I think sometimes you can watch a film and it almost feels like misery tourism or something. That, you know, it's, this is about these people over here, but I don't really have to worry about them. And I wanted to plant the seed in the audience's mind that could be my son. You know, it could be my son, the one being forced to climb the pylon. It could be my son that's forcing him to climb the pylon, or I could just be one of these kind of my son could be a peripheral character in all of this. So yeah, I suppose in a slightly not sadistic way, but in a I wanted to plant that seed in
yeah, it works
in
well
parents'
because
minds.
as you said before, I mean, you have memories when you were younger. So I'm slightly older than you are, but I've got exactly the same memories of groups of boys, being silly because you spend entire days during the summer doing nothing, so in the country just kicking boxes, and so you start doing silly challenges, and so it ends up sometimes in horrible things like this, but we won't spoil it.
Yes. And to that point, I mean, I think the two brothers in the film, or what is revealed to be an older brother at the end, I see myself in both of those characters, that these behaviors are kind of inherited, and I remember being in situations where I felt I was being bullied or put up to things that I didn't want to do, and because of that, then when you finally climb the ladder of being an adolescent and you find yourself in the slightly sort of raised position, you then enact that on other people. And I remember doing that to my little brother, and I don't know how much of that sort of he carries today, but certainly I feel a guilt about those things, about the sort of atrocities really that you impose on your siblings or friends or younger people, and it's this kind of this chain that continues to exist, and it creates a sort of this kind of feral masculinity or that I think is kind of in people.
So we've got a very strong anti-harassment movement here in France at the moment, because a kid committed suicide not so long ago in a school after being harassed by other guys. Do you think that there are measures taken in the UK to try to change precisely the way young boys and girls, because girls now do a lot of harassment too. Do you think things are changing, or do you think maybe because of the social network it makes things worse at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think there will always be something in people, not just children, about this kind of, well, for as long as we continue sort of thinking about the world as a society, as it seems that we do, that there will always be this kind of element of competition, of wanting to kind of climb over each other to get slightly further up the ladder or the tree. I do worry about social media and the effect that has on children, and this I don't know, this kind of obsession with being a star, or to getting likes, and that then can infect the way that children behave each other. I see sometimes these kind of TikTok videos or videos on Twitter of kids who are doing like pranks or whatever, and really it's kind of just like filmed or documented kind of assault, just for the sake of like this kind of imagined audience that you have. So I think that's certainly added to it, even though you think it would maybe have the adverse effect, because if everybody's got a camera and you're kind of filming each other's crimes, as it were, you would kind of think, well, I don't want to be, but people just seem to, become even more feral in front of the camera.
Things. Yeah, it's a changing time. So, but what I really appreciated in your film too, that the kids haven't got any phones. No, no, really, it's fun, because we've got several films this year. We've had a lot of films with, the telephone is a key character of the film, and we've got the image in the image, etc. But this year we've got quite a few films where you feel that and people are fed up with watching phones on the screen, I think. And that's a good thing, because even among young people, apparently there is a movement trying to get away from the phone for a while. So maybe things will reverse in the other way. Are you working on a new project or not? At the moment?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I have two feature projects which are in different stages of development. One which is written and ready to go, and we're just kind of in the process of getting finance for that.
All right.
Another project which I'm working on at the moment, which is in the sort of research and treatment stage, but I would hope to have the script written very soon. All right. Which concerns an English, very middle-class English family who bring in to their home a family of Ukrainian refugees, and almost immediately regret their decision.
All right.
So it's all about clenched resentment and the way that people can kind of imagine what their kind of ethical or moral positions or political positions are on things, but you know, those theories get put to the test when someone's in your house, in your bathroom, in your kitchen.
Yeah,
so,
true. Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Okay.
something I'm working on at the moment.
Okay. Is it easy to produce a film in the UK now, or is it more difficult than in the past?
I just feel like it's always been difficult, and it's always going to be difficult. You know, I just think you've got to grind it out really, and just sort of do whatever you can to get it over the line. But I'm working with really kind of good people around me at the moment, so I'm confident. You know, you have to be confident. You have to be glass half full about these things, because otherwise, you know.
Okay, good. Okay, well, good luck for your projects, and I hope maybe you'll do another short film in the future, even though you turn to feature films. And of course, if you have a short, because it's only short here, we'll be very happy to have it in This Is England again, of course.
Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
That's all right, guys.
Enjoy the journey.
Just a new adventure. You think I should be more open-minded?
Come on, Bert. Be someone.
Wow.
What do you say when you receive a new present?
I'm going to be sick.
You're gonna be alright.
Sorry? You dated David Bowie.
It's a sacrifice to save the world.
Enjoy the journey.
Just a new adventure. You think I should be more open-minded?
Come on, Bert. Be someone.
Wow.
What do you say when you receive a new present?
I'm gonna be sick.
You're gonna be alright.
Sorry? You dated David Bowie.
It's a sacrifice to save the world.
Hi Tom.
Hi.
Very happy to have you here at This is England Short Film Festival. You're here because yesterday we had the pleasure to watch your film Tika, and I must say I was quite impressed by it because the subject was quite original, I think, both the characters and the setting, and the treatment you made of it was very subtle and very moving. So can you tell us about the film, please, before we start getting into the core of your work?
Sure. Well, and thanks for having us. It's been a really great festival so far. It's been brilliant. I wanted to see an older LGBTQ story set in a rural countryside environment, and that's something that I hadn't really seen on screen before. There've been some brilliant features, things like God's Own Country, Francis Lee's feature with a younger gay couple in that. We've seen things like Supernova, which looked at an older gay couple with some health issues creeping in and the implications for their relationship. So trying to sort of blend some of those things which are quite close to me and my experience of growing up in the countryside. That's where it kind of all started, I guess.
Yeah. So we really feel, I mean, that the connection between those two characters at the beginning is a bit I mean, it's an old couple, so like old couples, you feel that they maybe are worn out in the relationship they've had, but I mean the journey to, without spoiling anything, it's a trip to the hospital, so we feel that there is something going on within the couple in those moments there. Can you explain maybe how you wrote this story, what you had in mind in the kind of movement in the film?
Well, I was quite interested in seeing how in a short space of time with a slight nudge of something, a couple that maybe has fallen into not a breakdown of a relationship but just sort of bad habits of maybe losing the everyday kindness and things that in relationships that have been going on for a long time do fall by the wayside, how at a time of stress and intensity something could just nudge them out of that and push them into a slightly better place than they were, not necessarily solving everything but just to see that subtle shift really. And with LGBTQ people in the countryside, it's a complex relationship, as you've alluded to. People may feel less comfortable about being open about relationship. There's much more isolation for people in the countryside. The peer support isn't there, and
there's been quite a lot of work done in the UK. Certainly Age UK did a big report about older people in the countryside, and particularly LGBTQ people are very vulnerable for those sorts of things, and isolation in particular. They're a group of people who are less likely to have a support network around them. They're less likely to have children, just statistically. Sure. So those informal relationships where a family would normally surround people at a time of ill health or going into hospital, whatever it is, then they're not necessarily there. And that's what I wanted to look at in this couple. They feel quite isolated. They've only got each other, really.
Yeah. So that's why the scene at the beginning of the film, when he wants the car to stop to talk to the neighbor, there's a nice woman talking to him, and when he says that, yeah, maybe it's the last time he talks to someone like this. So yeah, that's a very small part of the film, but it set the intention, of course, which is quite very interesting. So we won't talk too much about, people must watch your film, okay, because it's really, once again, a very, very moving experience. But I read you were a composer too, so you know about music, and I was quite impressed while watching your film by the rhythm and the moments of silence you had in your film. And so I thought that maybe because you are a composer and composing music is organizing silences, and so I had in mind that maybe unconsciously when you organized the shots of your films, the rhythm was maybe organized through passages of silence and then movement and noise, and then, so what can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I originally hadn't planned to have any additional music in it. There is a piece of music, there's a song which famous, I won't sort of like, but it's part of the storytelling. And my idea had been that actually the world they exist in is devoid of music apart from that punctuating which drives the story along. But it's just when you get to an edit and you look at something and it is quite still, it's purposefully meant to feel quite barren, it's a quite barren landscape. We were filming a year ago this weekend, it was cold, the days got dark very quickly, so that atmosphere was important to me. But you get into the edit room and you've got these things placed next to each other, and actually you do need to just slightly stitch stuff together, and that just felt like it needed something to stitch it together. So we hadn't budgeted for a composer, so as I said, I better do it myself. All right. And I trained as a musician when I was younger, so I'd done a lot of that sort of stuff. But it was interesting trying to stitch it together with a light touch and not then heavily kind of smash it with additional music, but just give it enough to weave forward gently at the beginning of the film.
It works very well. The music, of course, the soundtrack. I mean, so it must be quite expensive to get that very famous tune in your film. But the fact is, you had a question about that during the Q&A, whether you had another option in case you could not afford this music, because the lyrics, they are exactly, they fit exactly with the situation and your film, and so of course you would have had to compose your own song maybe if that would have been too expensive. So how did you? Was it planned before, or how did you get to get that music in your film?
Yeah, so the song that we use is quite specific to, I guess, the sentiment of what changes on this car journey. It's really hard because when for those people who don't know about the process behind making a film, you sort of have to do a lot of things simultaneously, and you don't quite know if all those things are going to land, whether you'll be able to get the rights to the music that you can afford, whether you can get the dog or the tow vehicle on the right day, and you can't just wait for everything to slot in before you move on to the next thing. So it was a bit of a risk, and I'd sort of thought about a couple of other songs, but really didn't have a kind of firm backup, and specifically the song we use is of the era that those two men would have been sort of in a different place, really. So it was really important to try and get it. But luckily, we got the license, and they were happy for us to use a portion of it. So just sometimes you just got to throw a bit of faith at it, and
really, it's good. And that's
good.
no. Usually, I mean, we do the French subtitles to your film, of course. And as you could see, I mean, the song was subtitled too. And usually, I mean, when there are songs in the background, and we just don't do the subtitles, because it's just a song to get along with the film. But here, I mean, knowing, I mean, the song had very important meaning, and the lyrics with what was going on, so that was part of it. But no, great stuff. So about your creative process. So you mentioned the editing of your film. In the end, what you got, was it exactly what you had in mind before you started shooting? Did you write exactly, very precisely, the sequel of shots, or did you get surprised by what happened while you were shooting, because you had two amazing actors, I mean, very good, and so did they have some kind of improvisation going on, or was it very written?
It was fairly sort of written, and the biggest challenge, and I was talking to a couple of other filmmakers about this, was we filmed on film, which made things technically more challenging in terms of time, and not having the luxury of being able to use a lot of film and to do 4 or 5 takes of each shot. So we actually had a very prepared shot list, as most people do when they're making work. But time was not on our side. We did it in a couple of days, and we had a few location changes, and we had the car and a dog. So don't work with animals. This animal was great, but that was the most challenging thing, really. And I think the lesson I learned as someone who's quite new to filmmaking and an early stage director is that working with actors like Paul and Ian, who are, and Liz as well, Paul and Ian being the sort of principal characters, very experienced. You really, they're kind of worth their weight, really, in terms of what they bring, what they offer, and their experience, and just being completely comfortable. And that was really important. And the biggest takeaway I've had is, if you can work with those sorts of actors, if you can offer a project that maybe they'd be interested in doing and stimulates them and they respond to, that's a great way in, and a really nice thing to work with.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, you've just mentioned you filmed on film.
Yeah,
that's true. And the grain is beautiful, and it's perfect with the atmosphere of the time, when the guys were young. So yeah, it works very well. So technically speaking, you've got the film. All right, then you digitalize everything before editing, or how do you cut and stick it before or after? How does it work?
So you send your film off after 2 days of shooting in a car to Kodak Laboratory, and it's really nerve-wracking because you don't know quite if you've got the film in the can, and then quite how it's all going to turn out. So there's a couple of sleepless nights, and then you just get sent back one sort of master scan, which is everything all kind of put together with a very rough grade on it, and that's a digital file.
All right.
And then from that, your editor kind of compiles it and puts it together with the sound, which is obviously separate and has to kind of match all that up. And then you're working with this sort of roughly graded material, which is quite challenging because you've had some things which have been done sometimes even on different types of film. Some of it looks quite good and you think, oh, that's quite a nice shot with this rough grade that's just been applied to the whole thing. And then other shots look really awful.
Oh, really?
And Barbara, the DOP, who's very experienced, has worked with film a lot, said, no, it's fine. Just the grade is a separate thing. This is our kind of rough editing set of rushes. And once we get back to the grade, we'll be able to fix this and get it to where we want. So it's quite an unnerving process. Things don't look like they're going to look in the end, and you get quite wedded to stuff. So it was interesting, but you're in a digital workflow once it's all been scanned.
It gets to digital. What happens to the film in the end?
I don't know where the film is. Probably in the bin.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
Oh God. All right.
Knows? It's a very good question.
Yeah,
I'll get the answer for the next Q&A.
That's crazy. So that's the only way to get this aspect. I mean, this grain on the film. You could not use a digital camera that would recreate that stuff. What's the use of using films?
Well, I mean, you could do anything digitally, couldn't you? And I'm not a sort of expert in those things in grading, but I think what I like the imperfection of it. Shooting on 16mm with little kind of blips and bits of hair and fluff that come up, and the fact that you sort of register that it looks different to what you see on the telly, or going to see, you know, sort of Hollywood movie or Marvel movie or something where everything's really kind of clear and perfect. It takes you to a place where you think, oh, I'm watching a film, and it's a bit otherworldly. And I think, you know, I like to go and see things that transport me out of everyday life, and so that quality just looks a bit different. It suits, you know, their faces. Paul and Ian's faces on film just look kind of wonderful, and it's a film about looking at something from the past that happens to crop up and then like takes you forward slightly. So it just felt a little bit kind of poetic to use film, but not without its stress and
I guess so.
Next one I'm doing is digital, don't worry.
Oh, really? Yeah. So what's your next project, by the way?
What am I doing next? Well, I've got another couple of shorts that I'd sort of like to do one of, and some feature ideas as well that just sketching out. And I'm still really interested in rural filmmaking and representing the areas that I'm from, which I don't think we see much on film, and there aren't many films made in North Staffordshire and the West Midlands where I live. So I'm quite interested in the darker side of rural life, and some of the challenges that the farming community faces. I have a small farm myself, so you know, we're quite embedded in the risks to our livestock and disease and all those things, and it can become quite tense, and you feel quite observed by the people around you. So those are themes that I'm interested in, a little bit darker, a little bit more sinister. See something that might come out of that.
Yeah, well, that's my life here in Normandy. I mean, I was in the country too, and in small villages, and exactly the same atmosphere as what you're depicting. Yeah. And it's still like this. Okay, no changes, no real changes from starting from Brexit to now in the country, in the UK. Do you feel that people are about the same as they were a few years ago, or can you feel that because some people, I mean, here in France, we get information about the fact that in the UK, everything is going, you know, in any direction. So, what about life in the country at the moment?
Well, it's challenging. We've moved back to the country after living in the city for a long time, so I haven't been able to see those changes as they've happened since Brexit. But the feeling I get is that making a living from the countryside was challenging enough already, and Brexit has not helped that. You know, we sort of like, we have a difficult and strange relationship with our food and food production, and we don't always ask about the provenance and quality of our food, particularly animal products. And I think our relationship is sort of changing, and hopefully people over time will want to have higher welfare stuff and ask where things have come from a little bit more than they have done. But we've also seen, you know, sort of forays into more non-meat based, non-dairy based lifestyles, and then lots of processed food, which has now sort of been questioned. So I think we're in a time of flux, and the farming community sits in quite an unsteady place in all that. But yeah, we aren't, luckily we're not commercially farming, so but our neighbours, you know, it's very difficult.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, of course. All right, so you've got a lot of subjects to explore.
Yeah, it's a very
films.
a rich place to work.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and once again, I invite everyone to try to find a way to watch your film, which is very good.
Thanks, Christoph. Thank you.
Welcome.
Enjoy the journey.
Just a new adventure. You think I should be more open-minded?
Come on, Bert. Be someone.
Wow.
What do you say when you receive a new present?
I'm gonna be sick.
You're gonna be alright.
Sorry? You dated David Bowie.
It's a sacrifice to save the world.
Cool.
Enjoy the journey.
Just a new adventure. You think I should be more open-minded?
Come on, Bert. Be someone.
What do you say when you receive a new present?
I'm going to be sick.
You're going to be all right.
Sorry? You dated David Bowie.
It's a sacrifice to save the world.
Hi Neil.
Hi.
Very happy to welcome you to This is England Short Film Festival. So we're looking forward to watching your film Wish I Were There. So it's an animation film. Can you please tell us a little bit about it before we start talking about your work in detail?
Sure. So Wish I Were There is a short animated piece. Kind of reflects my love for the Yorkshire coast, so north of England, the county of Yorkshire, which is where I'm from, but I'm from inland from there, so I'm from a place called Bradford. So in the UK, you're never more than 70 miles from the sea.
Sure.
So we, I think as a nation, we have a kind of love and a draw to the seaside. And where I'm from is a very industrial part of Yorkshire. And historically, people would, say if a factory would close down for a week or 2 weeks, and everyone would go on holiday, and they'd all go to the Yorkshire coast. So there was a bit of a, so there's that kind of social history kind of connection with the coast for people from kind of Bradford and that sort of area. So it's about my love of the coast, but what it's really about is it was a part of the coastline I used to go to a lot as a child. And I had friends who lived in near the Yorkshire coast. And then when I went back as a young adult in my early 20s, it was very different to the experience that I had as in childhood. I kind of saw that it was a bit run down. It was just full of arcades and kind of what we call tat, and kind of gaudy attractions. And I never really saw that as a child. So it was about that dissonance between what I see now what I saw then as a young adult and what I remember of the place as a small child. But that kind of drifts away as you kind of move that behind, get away from that and step onto the beach and then appreciate the beauty. I'm quite a keen bird watcher, so I'm interested in bird life, and so any time that I'm going to the coast, I'm interested in the bird life. So it's kind of about my experience of returning to such a place and then seeing it's very different to what I expect. But once you step beyond that and gone to the coast and to the actual beach or the actual coastline, it's beautiful. But as the project, as the film took a long time to make, I became a father during the process.
Congratulations.
And then towards the end, it was kind of actually, there's a new way of engaging with this place. It's like, as a father and with my two daughters, their experience of a place is different to my experience of it and different to my experience of it as a child. So it's really about that kind of feeling that a place can give you, but how that changes over time and how that sometimes is, problematic to an extent.
All right. Okay, so visually it's very beautiful. You start from postcards and then there is a treatment of image which is very interesting. So sure. Everything is made digitally, I guess, but it looks like it's drawn on, but it's made on a tablet of some kind, I guess.
Sure.
So can you tell us about the technique?
Yeah, sure. So I've been thinking about it for a long time, the film, and I pretty much all of that film was drawn onto an iPad, and so I would, I wrote the poem, which was like a couple of pages long, and then reduce that down, and then created the poem which you hear in the film. And I had kind of key images that each kind of line or each section kind of really had. So I would design those using a piece of software called Procreate, which is a piece of iPad drawing software. Mm-hmm. And that became my kind of key image, and then I would animate to that. Sometimes that would be animated partially on the iPad itself. Sometimes that would be in Photoshop using a graphics tablet, a Cintiq monitor. And then there's a lot of layering of that, and there's a lot of texture in that. So there's
lots of texture, like actually photographs of the beach. I'm very into printmaking, so I create a lot of textures with the big rollers that you use for printmaking, the brayers, and there's a lot of that texture layered onto it. And then all those layers are then composited together in a compositing software to create the kind of final shot. But then, so within my production company, we have a colorist who does the kind of color finishing of films.
Oh, right.
And I wanted the format of the film to feel nostalgic. So in the start, we open quite wide, and then the screen, the kind of rebate around the screen closes down to become almost like a kind of Super 8 or an 8mm look, and the color becomes more saturated. And that's as the kind of poem progresses, and that kind of beauty of the coast is kind of realized. So I wanted that to kind of have that kind of 8mm, Super 8mm kind of overly saturated Kodachrome kind of film stock feel. So that's kind of why I went down that route.
Yeah, well, the effect is very spectacular, really. So you mentioned the poem, of course. It's a very important part of the soundtrack. It's your voice, I guess. I mean,
yes,
you are the one reading it. Yeah. And it's really beautiful. I mean, people must rush and see it. It's quite beautiful. And so my question, I think you started answering it, was about how you organized the work. Did you start with images, or did you start with the poem? You started with the poem. And so it's the poem which gave you the images. Okay? It's not so... Your postcards were first written, okay?
Yes.
And so that's quite interesting. So, so how did you get to start writing poetry? Is it something you do regularly?
It isn't something really. I mean, it's just something I'm interested in it, but I'm not like really totally into poetry, and I don't write a lot of poetry. But whilst at school, amongst the literature you study, I studied a poet called Philip Larkin, who's from Coventry but lived in Hull, so quite close to the Yorkshire coast, and he had quite an interesting way of observing people and observing kind of ritual, and so when I had this idea of actually that kind of dissonance I've got between experience of the coast and kind of memory of the coast, my thoughts went straight to Philip Larkin, and so I started reading and studying his poetry again, first time like kind of since sixth form school, and there's one poem which is about going to the coast and lots of people flocking to the coast, and I kind of read that, and that kind of gave me that thought. I was like, I'll give it a go. I'll give the poetry a go. I mean, my first draft was quite significant. I think if I made a short film of that, it would be 5 minutes long. But then that slowly got iterated into something short, and the kind of final kind of poem would have been about a couple of minutes long if I'd have read it, but I then shortened it down so it would be about 3 or 4 minutes, but I shortened it down for what you see in the film to give it a bit of breathing space. And also because the poem that I wrote was very, I think I was just looking at the notes that I'd written on a version of it where I'd just kind of crossed a lot out, where I'd seen that some bits were specifically the experience of maybe somebody from West Yorkshire. Whereas some of the other lines and some of the other kind of parts of the poem were more relatable for a wider audience. Yeah. So I kind of boiled it down into that really relatable, for me at least, or for what I perceived experience. And having seen it with an audience recently, and again hopefully tonight, I've kind of found that yes, it does resonate with people, which has been really nice. Really nice.
Yeah, really. Yeah. I mean, I've watched it already, of course, because we work on it before we screen it to people. And no, really, it's a beautiful film. So it's funny because Rouen is a city which is twinned with Norwich in Norfolk, and so we get there quite often with the twinning committee, and we've had the opportunity to visit Great Yarmouth, and the feeling you described of this kind of very weird places with a lot of arcades and a bit shabby buildings, and you feel, oh, what am I doing there? It's exactly what you could feel walking around the place, and at the same time there are old buildings that were certainly spectacular and amazing. 80, 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And well, you feel, oh my God, things are moving fast. So that's exactly the idea. But once you get to the beach, as you said, you've got the sea, you've got the birds, and so you can feel it again. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's a, you know, the whole coast of England and to an extent part of Scotland as well, and Wales has that story writ large, especially if it's, you know, 20, 30, 40 miles from an industrial centre. It's kind of got that bit. I now live in Lincoln and we've got Skegness on the coast, and that's kind of exactly the same. So it is, I think, say the bits that I took out of the poem, which was very West Yorkshire centric, you know, almost were related to my journey from, you know, the lines there from the tightly terraced west we travelled across violet carpeted moorland. So, you know, West Yorkshire, tight terrace housing, covered in soot until they've recently cleaned them, and then we would go over the Yorkshire moors to get to the coast, and that was my journey as a child. But that was a specific, you know, to, you know, a lesser audience, let's say, that would kind of relate to. So I wanted to kind of it be that more relatable British kind of seaside experience. All the sound for the film was recorded at the coast, at the Yorkshire coast, other than some Foley which I did in the studio, which my 2 young daughters helped me with as well, which was nice. So they appear at the end on the soundtrack, so which is quite nice. All
right, so I'd like to end this interview talking about, because you are into digital things, very modern techniques. Have you considered using artificial intelligence in helping you for, you know, your animation films, or is it something that you feel might not be, you know, suitable? What can you tell me about that?
No, I think is the answer to that question, really, because I mean, I obviously do a fair bit of animation, and I always want the visual look of something to be informed by its story. And I think once you add something like AI into the mix, and yes, no doubt if you're working very hard with your prompts, that you can create something that is, you know, like the sort of style that you want. But if you know what you want to achieve, you just draw it yourself and create it there. I also, you know, obviously there's plenty of ethical issues in terms of the use of AI and what's that's taking and where the data set of those images is coming from. There has been recent projects where I've been considering using it as a way of selecting or randomizing art, but using a kind of a bank of images that we've created, or I do a lot of work, the company I work for do a lot of work in the community, and we do a lot of participatory artwork. So like potentially could look at using that to, you know, you create a bank of imagery, working with young people in schools, working with the community, and then you could use AI to train on that data set and then randomize from there. But for my own films, I'm very visually driven. There's often a couple of key images in anything that I'm working on that I need to get out of my head and animated and working, and that for me is the key to working around a film. But I think I got into animation because I love to draw and I love to tell stories in that way, and so to kind of give that over to a machine just is kind of, it's the antithesis of what I'm kind of in this game, let's say, to do, really. So
okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us here in a while.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Enjoy the journey.
Just a new adventure. You think I should be more open-minded?
Come on, Bert. Be someone.
Wow.
What do you say when you receive a new present?
I'm gonna be sick.
You're gonna be alright.
You dated David Bowie.
It's a sacrifice to save the world.